Today's project, we have a 2004 2500 Suburban. Came in because it had a transmission shifting issue. Pretty much figured out that that was some disgustingly nasty ancient fluid that was in this thing. Black transmission fluid, probably a clogged filter. Was able to get it to drive and shift through all the gears. After I revved it up, it got some pressure built up. But while driving it, I noticed front wheel bearing appeared to be bad. And so I brought it in, jacked it up to check it, and this is what I discovered. Now, a lot of times these wheel bearings, you barely get any play in them, even when they sound terribly. But this one here is, see how much play that actually has in the tire. But it's a lot. Like, you can literally see that whole hub shifting around in there. It's really, really, really bad. Never seen one actually quite that terrible. So we're gonna take the wheel off, get the bearing assembly out. It comes as a unit, the hub, and I'll replace it. So here's a little closer look. Get the tire off. I already took the center nut off. A 36mm socket will take these off. They're actually like 1" and something. It's above 1.25 inches. It's a weird size, but 36mm works pretty good. Took that off with the tire sitting on the ground so this tire doesn't spin. It's a self-locking style nut, so it has tension pretty much all the way off. But just to show you here now how much play is in that hub. You can see that. There's a lot. It's basically the brake pads in here. They're keeping this thing from moving any more than it already does. But yeah, that's real bad. So start by taking the brake caliper bolts out for here, top and bottom, pulling that brake caliper off. Usually I can set it up here somewhere. And then in the back, there's bolts. You can see one of them right there. There's 4 of them that hold the hub assembly in. So we'll take the brake caliper off, we'll take the brake caliper bracket off, get the rotor off, and then take those 4 bolts out and back and pull the hub assembly out. So I got the brake caliper off. I just took the brake caliper bracket off, which is that guy right there. 2 bolts on the backside. Those are Loctited, so they're pretty hard to get broke loose. I use my breaker bar and my mini mallet there to beat on to get them loose, because my impact wouldn't even take those off. Granted, it's not the bestest of impacts, but now I'm working at getting these hub bolts loosened on the backside here. It's handy to have an impact swivel so that you can actually get your gun in here on the top and on the bottom bolt here. With that swivel, you'll actually be able to get it. Otherwise, you're going to run into clearance issues back here. So once you get the caliper bracket off, throw a glove on here. This brake disc just slides right off here. There that is. That's a bit of a beast. Well, now you're left here. Here's your hub. There you can see where the 4 bolts come in from the backside. New one comes whole assembly, and it comes with this wheel speed sensor right there. And now we can definitely see how much play is in this thing. Once we get these bolts out right here, the ones that come through from the backside, the 4 of them that hold them on, they're 15mm, and use a 6-point socket on those. I actually used a 12-point socket on the first one, and it just stripped out. So I had to beat on a 9/16 socket, 12-point 9/16, beat it on the head, and I was able to get it out. A little trick for if you happen to strip them out, but having a 12-point socket. So once you get all of those out of there, then you just you loosen all your clips up on this cable, and you just start wiggling this guy up and down here and pulling and beating, and eventually it's going to separate right there. And I may need two hands to do this, but sometimes they're in there really tight, sometimes not so tight. It does help if you engage the four-wheel drive sometimes on this. But anyways, it separates right there. When you put it back together, don't forget about your heat shield for your brakes. You put the new one. I'll show the new one going back in here. Thought this one was gonna just slide out for me, but it's not working. So there we have new bearing hub assembly all installed. Very nice. As you can see now, we don't have any up and down play on this at all. These bolts are torqued to like 133 foot-pounds, I believe it is. And then the ones for the caliper bracket are like 221 or something. My torque wrench goes to 150 foot-pounds, so I'm gonna call that, good. I'm gonna put them in with some Loctite. The originals do have some Loctite, some yellow on there. I think I have blue around here. I may have red. Red's pretty aggressive though. And they were pretty hard to get out as it was, so. Put that caliper bracket back on. Put the caliper back on first, or put the disc back on first. Again, another thing not to forget, so don't forget to put your heat shield behind your bearing. Don't forget to put your disc in before you put your caliper bracket on. And then the caliper goes back on. And the wheel and tire, that's about it. It does not take that long. A couple hours out here today, and we're done. Got the caliper back on here. And a little trick for tightening down that axle nut. I ran it down with a socket and a ratchet wrench, because they say don't impact these down on the new bearings. Although, like I said in my other videos, I have impacted these on, and they've lasted for years with them impacted on. But you can stick a heavy-duty screwdriver down in your rotor like that, and it'll help hold everything while you run it down. Not sure it'll hold it while you torque it. I usually torque it once the wheel is on, and then I torque it and then put the cap back on everything. But yeah, it's a way to hold it in place at least while you run that nut down.